In the summer of 2003, tucked away in the northern part of Oregon, just outside a forgotten town called Dry Creek, there was a lake most people didn't even know existed. It wasn't on any modern map, didn't show up on GPS, and no signs pointed toward it. Locals called it Stillmere, and if you asked them about it, they'd either shrug like they'd never heard of it or change the subject entirely. But on July 18th of that year, a college student named Chris Delaney found it by accident, and his life would never be the same again. Chris was 22, studying environmental science at Portland State. That summer, he volunteered with a small research group doing soil studies in the area. It was simple work: take samples, log data, move on. But Chris was the kind of person who liked to wander off trail. On his third day there, he veered from the rest of the group during lunch break and followed a narrow path that wasn't on the site maps. He didn't plan to be gone long. But the path led him deeper into the woods, winding between dead trees and old moss-covered stones, until he saw a clearing, and in the middle of it, a lake so still, it looked like glass. It was beautiful, dark blue, almost black in places, with thick pines circling it like silent guards. No birds, no wind, just silence so thick it rang in his ears. He stepped closer, peered over the edge, and saw his reflection so clearly it looked like another version of him staring up. Then, just as he was about to walk away, he heard something that made his skin crawl. It said his name. Not loud. Not whispered either. Just, calm. Casual. But definitely coming from the lake. Chris. He froze. Looked around. Nobody was there. He leaned over the water again. Chris. This time, it was unmistakable. The voice came from the lake. But the water never moved. No ripples, no bubbles. Just perfect, still glass. He stumbled back, heart pounding, and ran all the way back to camp. He didn't say a word to the others. But that night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard it again. Chris. Always in the same tone, familiar. Like it wasn't trying to scare him. Like it already knew him. The next morning, he went back. Something pulled him there. Not curiosity. Not bravery. Something deeper. He followed the same path, stepped into the same clearing. The lake looked exactly the same. Silent. Peaceful. Waiting. He stood at the edge and said, "What do you want?" The water didn't move. But the voice answered. "Come closer." He didn't. Not that day. But over the next week, he returned every day. And every day, the lake spoke to him. It told him things, personal things. Stuff no one could possibly know. His childhood nightmares. His first breakup. The time he almost drowned when he was 6. The lake didn't just know facts, it knew how he felt. It remembered with him. On the 7th day, the lake said, "I can show you everything." That was the first time Chris saw it. A shape, under the surface. Long and thin, like a person stretched out underwater. But it never broke the surface. Just floated there, watching. Chris reached out. That was the last time anyone saw him. 2 days later, the research group packed up and left. Nobody thought much about Chris. He was known to be a bit of a loner. They figured he went back to town early or caught a ride home. But when his parents didn't hear from him after a week, they reported him missing. The police combed the forest, dogs sniffed every trail, helicopters scanned overhead. Nothing. No one could find Stillmere Lake. It was gone. Not drained, not dried up, just gone. The trail Chris followed was overgrown, like no one had walked it in decades. No clearing. No sign of water. Like the forest had swallowed it whole. The case went cold. But then, things got weirder. Every year, on July 18th, someone else goes missing in that area. It's not publicized. The cases are listed under different categories: hiking accidents, animal attacks, misadventures. But if you look closely, they all vanish near the same coordinates. And here's the part that sends chills down your spine. In 2017, a hiker named Paul Nguyen uploaded a short video to a backwoods survival blog. It was only 12 seconds long. In the clip, Paul is walking through a dense forest, talking about mushrooms. Then, he suddenly stops and says, "Do you hear that?" He turns the camera toward a small body of water. Then the video cuts off. Police found his phone 6 months later, under a tree stump 20 miles from the last GPS ping. No sign of Paul. But when digital forensics experts reviewed the file frame by frame, at the very last second before the video ends, you can hear something in the background. Very faint, but clear enough to send shivers through anyone listening. A voice says, "Come closer." No one has found that lake since. Some say it only appears to people it chooses. That it waits for someone who's alone, maybe someone hurting or lost, and it whispers to them in a voice they trust. Because here's the truth, the lake doesn't call out to everyone. Just the ones it wants. So if you're ever walking through a forest, and you find yourself standing in front of a perfectly still body of water you've never seen before, don't look too closely at your reflection. Because it might look back and say your name.